Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulil karim. Saudara Menteri Pendidikan Datuk Zamri, Kadir, Saudara Fahmi, warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulil karim. Menteri, Saudara Menteri Pendidikan Datuk Zamri, Kadir, Saudara Fahmi, warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulil karim. Saudara Menteri Pendidikan Datuk Zamri, Kadir, Saudara warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulil karim. Masa menuntut sedikit penyesuaian. Saya ingin memulakan dengan menyatakan penghargaan kepada Universiti Malaya dan KPT kerana menganjurkan suatu sidang yang bermakna, menganjurkan wacana kesarjanaan dan intelektual lebih terbuka. Di negara kita seperti juga di negara berkembang yang lain, di antara cabaran dan tujuan cabaran utama adalah untuk menggalakkan perubahan atau menuntut perubahan, tapi melalui wacana lebih terbuka, yang meluas, yang segar. Apatah lagi bila kita selalu diheret untuk membicarakan soal-soal yang jumut dan lapuk, hasutan dan memecah belahkan, dan menyebabkan kita ketandusan idea. Kalau mau maju, kita harus bicara soal transformasi digital, peralihan tenaga, energy transition, bicarakan soal mutu pendidikan. Tetapi kalau kita terus diheret untuk bicarakan soal kaum secara sempit, soal agama secara jumut, walaupun perbincangan soal kaum agama itu tidak dilarang, tetapi tidak akan membawa kita ke satu mercu yang lebih hebat. Seandainya kita terus diheret untuk bicarakan soal-soal sedemikian. Sebab itu bagi saya permulaan ini sangat bermakna. A healthy intellectual discourse is required if you want to ensure that the country moves forward. The challenge is digital transformation, inequity, an international order that is clearly biased against the poor. We have my colleague Jeffrey Sachs, a notable scholar, who has written prolifically on a number of issues, challenge the normal discourse, as what philosopher Raymond Aron says. It's time for us to unlearn some of the normative mode of thinking. To challenge a dominant paradigm of thinking, either the ultra-conservative, outmoded views clinging to racism and religious bigotry, or the dominant thinking mode of thinking in the classic phrase of Fukuyama in terms of the dominant voice and victory for the so-called liberal democracy, which is neither liberal nor democratic. Particularly if you see the events holding in Gaza, you can sense the utter hypocrisy, immorality that has been talked about but never meaningfully practiced. So we have therefore to ensure that the discourse is healthy and meaningful, and deal with the issues that is pertinent, that could ensure that our nation chart a course that would ensure its not only its sustainability but progress, and ensure that the living conditions of our people are being championed and protected. But let me begin by acknowledging some of the faults and failures of the system. Our failure partly is our obsession with our past successes in inverted commas. Now, I'm not here to deny the fact that we have achieved formidable growth, unity, certain level of education that can be seen to be rather competitive in the region. But we look at the bare facts. Some of these data is concerning. Let us refer to the latest PISA report. Now, PISA is, of course, not the, should I say, the compelling case to ascertain the level of success. But it's a measure. Out of 81 countries selected in the PISA analysis, we are number 51. Low 1/3 in terms of our achievement, particularly mathematics, science, and the English language. Among the 7 ASEAN countries, you are the worst off. There is no reason whatsoever, given our resources and the level of achievement in the past, we have gone this way. The standard excuse is because of COVID-19. Now, COVID-19 impacted on all the countries, Laos, Cambodia, Indonesia, Singapore. Why is it we have failed in the score? And these are questions that we must ask before we embark on discussing the future. We must know the state of our affairs and cannot be in the state of denial. It's rarely that you have a prime minister coming to tell you about the problems. I'm not here. I'm not a propaganda minister. Neither is Fahmi. Of course, we have to take note of the successes, yes. But we must also commit ourselves to embarking upon this reform agenda. When we say, in uridu illa al-islah mastata'tu, that means trying our level best to affect change and reform for the better. Saudara-saudari, saya mulakan dengan berita yang agak kurang menyenangkan tentang laporan PISA. Tetapi ini juga termasuk atau terkait dengan lain-lain. Soal Teams, soal intradigital, soal kurikulum masa depan, soal prasekolah. Dalam semua kategori ini kita agak ketinggalan. Sebab itu dengan Menteri Pendidikan baru, saya telah gesa supaya dilihat semula sistem prasekolah. Kalau kita katakan 80% sahaja yang masuk prasekolah dengan kategori yang berbeza, mungkin 40% baik, selainnya itu agak mediocre, pertengahan, dan sekitar 20% sangat lemah. Maknanya tak sampai 50%. Maknanya kita dalam bicarakan soal keadilan, kita sebenarnya melebarkan kesenjangan di antara kota dan desa, kaya kota dan miskin kota, desa dan pedalaman. Sebab itu kesan saya, dalam tempoh singkat, pastikan bahawa tahun ini 2024, kita sediakan kemudahan tambahan supaya prasekolah itu, peluang prasekolah dikendali oleh Kementerian Pendidikan dengan maksud menyediakan kemudahan kepada semua pelajar dalam negara kita. Ia menelan belanja baru. Seperti sudah tahu, dalam belanjawan madani, bidang pendidikan itu mendapat peruntukan terbesar. Tetapi sekali lagi kita bermula dengan asas. Tahun 2023 kita belanja 1 bilion ringgit hanya perbaiki tandas. Bayangkan kita di Dewan yang indah ini, tetapi anak-anak kita sebelum masuk ke sini belajar di sekolah-sekolah yang dianggap kategori daif walaupun sekolah itu sekolah hebat. Ini termasuk Kolej Melayu Kuala Gangsa. 20 tandas yang masih diperbaiki. Tak bayang lagi ke sekolah di Sok Kudung atau Manik Urai itu dikapit. Now, for the benefit of Jeffrey Sack was saying, whilst we need to undertake major reform, including education and higher education, we have to take stock of the stark realities of the gross inequality at present. And I give this example of the state of affairs, our washrooms and lavatories in our schools. 1 billion ringgit has got to be spent just to repair 8,600 lavatories in our schools. It's pathetic. It's inexcusable for a country like Malaysia to tolerate this rot and nonsense for decades. And to me, that's a priority. Similarly, the issue of dealing with the issue of abject poverty. Of course, poverty is relative. It will take time to deal with this issue. But abject poverty for a country like Malaysia can no longer be condoned. Now I'm grateful, alhamdulillah, that for Kuala Lumpur, Negeri Sembilan, and Selangor, we have achieved. But then I'm still getting more data from other states where adequate resources must be given. When I talk about abject poverty or grinding poverty, it means that they don't have even funds to buy a school uniform, have proper food and shelter. And Malaysia cannot condone this or tolerate this, and at the same time talk about the next 100 years. Yes, we have to deliberate on these more complex issues because we're dealing with post-normal times. If I would care to summarize, post-normal times means dealing with a very complex, chaotic, and a situation full of contradictions. Complex, chaos, and contradictions. How do you predict the future given that sort of a scenario? My argument, and professors and intellectuals here can rebut and give their own critique. My intention is that we just plan and do our best. And as Kane say, we would, in the long run, we will all be dead. But here, if we don't deal with the issues of climate change, of grinding poverty, of issues of inequity, it is not in a theoretical sense. We will all be dead. Sustainability will require tough, bold measures. And therefore, as I think alluded to briefly by Dr. Zamri, tough measures, tough decisions will be made. I'll give you one example. We talk about digital transformation in the Madani platform that we announced last year. Then, of course, the Ministry of Education have got to then plan ahead what needs to be done. So the normal plan would be to accelerate the process. And I then receive the proposal that they will embark on this program in 2027. I cannot agree with that. Yes, a ministry has to plan ahead. implementation means in the next few years. We are left behind years compared to some countries, a decade. Most countries, 5 years. And we can't plan and start implementing in 2027. Yes, we don't have enough resources. But whatever is available must be done now, which means, as I told the ministry, I want at least some measures, some form implementation to be done, to be undertaken now, this year, no excuse. We talk about artificial intelligence. Okay, we have small funds outside the budget to start with one faculty. But I would certainly encourage universities to expand that program and probably given some years, do a little more. That would render the discourse on the future relevant and meaningful. That means to undertake measures not in the normal space of Board of Studies and going back and forth, the Ministry of Higher Education. I've instructed even the Minister of Higher Education. The ministry must give some space and to allow for universities to decide their priorities, inform the ministry and proceed. And all form of bureaucracy for the ministry to decide on behalf of the universities must end. Now, I'm suggesting this plainly because of the urgency and recognizing the fact that in some areas, and particularly in the PISA report, to me is very disturbing. If we use the normal pace, we will be left behind. But more importantly, the general framework. The Madani framework emphasized very clearly the issue of sustainability, not in the normal Western notion of sustainability, but must be consistent with SDG. We talk about governance, we talk about ihsan, compassion, trust, innovation, but it must start with governance. Billions of dollars have been siphoned off. And nobody dare touch the big crooks. They are invincible in the system. And mind you, I'm sure you've been following, and I think we in this country, political leaders, academicians, and so-called elites, must accept that responsibility that we have failed in our task to allow such gross diversions of public funds to enrich the few crooks, and this was tolerated for decades in this country. The rot must stop here. If you say that, well, this is a problem affecting the politicians, I want to remind you that many professors and so-called scholars are either somewhat complicit or be seen to be complicit with the system in the past. There's gross silence in the enforcement agencies, in the judiciary, among the intellectuals. There's no such healthy, reasoned discourse. So please be assured, you can use this forum and criticize the Prime Minister or our policies. You shouldn't feel that you'll be under threat. Of course, I would say don't use this forum to incite racial hatred and religious bigotry. But other than that, you are free, because I think the country requires a new culture of healthy exchanges and intellectual discourse. Nah, saya nak tekankan, ya, ada orang mengatakan bahawa kecurian puluh bilion ringgit ini. Kalau mau jadi Perdana Menteri, Menteri Keuangan, menteri-menteri ukurannya apa? Kekayaan. Dan ini dianggap biasa. Buat apa jadi Perdana Menteri kalau tidak jadi kaya? Bodohlah jadi Menteri Keuangan yang tak kumpul beliau-beliau. Ya. Pandangan hambar, haprak ini mesti diperangi. Dan kita yang bertanggung jawab ini bukan saja orang politik, tetapi seluruh sistem. Berapa sarjana yang bicara dengan berani? Yang mengizinkan keterlanjuran yang begini? Kita semua harus pikul tanggung jawab. Termasuk saya anggap. Saya harus lebih berani lagi dulu. Lebih berani lagi lama penjara. Tetapi saya nak anggap ini sebagai satu upaya kita yang terkuat. Saudara, saya mulakan dengan tata kelola. Memang tata kelola dan rasuah ini dibenci oleh beberapa pihak. Dia kata Anwar ini tak ada modal lain. Berucap saja sebut tata kelola dan rasuah. Dia lupa sebab rasuah dan tata kelola lah tak dapat bagi peruntukan begitu besar kepada pendidikan. Sebab rasuah dan tata kelola lemahlah. 8,000 tandas harus diperbaiki tahun lalu. Diketepikan begitu rupa. Sebab rasuah dan tata kelola lemahlah yang menyebabkan puluhan bilion wang rakyat dipunggah untuk beberapa tokoh tertentu. Tapi sudah, saya harap saya akan dapat, kalau tidak ada sokongan dalam politik atau lain-lain, sekurang-kurangnya dalam isu tata kelola dan tuntutan ke arah perubahan, saya pohon dukungan penuh daripada rakyat terutama yang berfikir. Saya nak meninggalkan bahagian tentang unjuran masa depan. Sebahagiannya telah saya lakar dalam ekonomi madani dan konsep masyarakat, dalam peluncuran transformasi digital dan plan perindustrian yang merupakan keanjakan dari pemikiran lama. Tetapi seperti mana kita tekankan dalam konsep madani ini, ya, pembangunan ini mesti pembangunan manusiawi seutuhnya. Dan tidak hanya memikirkan soal gedung-gedung raksasa. Sebab itu kalau sebagai contoh sudah lihat, bila saya kenali Kuala Lumpur, Kementerian Wilayah dan Bandaraya Kuala Lumpur, saya beritahu keutamaan kita sekarang dalam kerajaan madani tidak mercu tanda, tidak gedung-gedung besar. Itu kerja swasta yang mereka lakukan. Dana kerajaan, pertama pembersihan, kemudian asas, sekolah yang terbaik, gerai-gerai dan warung yang dimanfaatkan oleh majoriti rakyat, yang bersih, yang indah. Itu pendekatan kita dan saya tidak sedia untuk tolak ansur melaksanakan dasar itu untuk kebajikan rakyat terbanyak. Jadi saya harap perkara ini dapat juga disentuh dan singgung oleh saudara kerana menunjukkan masa depan yang tentunya memerlukan beberapa perubahan. Saya rumuskan dalam beberapa pidato kepada pelajar dan mahasiswa dan sarjana tentang usaha menggapai langit, meneroka alam pemikiran dan teknologi baru. Itu menggapai seolah-olah yang di langit, tapi tidak pernah harus kita tinggalkan apa yang disebut sebagai mengakar ke bumi dengan agama, budaya, nilai dan akhlak kita. Jadi sementara menggapai langit, meneroka alam pemikiran teknologi baru, kita tetap mengakar ke bumi supaya jati diri kita, kemanusiaan kita, nilai dan akhlak kita dapat kita pertahankan. Sekian, terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.